Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cooking with Positivity. I am your host, Zakia McCoy. Here at Cooking with Positivity, we like to focus on positivity leading to success, whether that be in your business, in your love life, or in your everyday decision making. We are joined by our family member, CWP Award nominee, and all around food man, Chef Rico. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's so great to be here and so great to be talking to you, Zakia.
It's so great to have you back.
It's been a
Can
while.
you? Yeah, it has. We've done a lot of things. Things have been life has been lifing, as they say.
Yeah.
Now, can you remind the CWP family who you are? Who is Chef Rico? What you known for? All of the good things.
Well, how many hours do you got? I'll keep it short. Chef Rico. I've got a company called Mise en Place. We do culinary travel as well as also sell all kinds of artisan food products. I've been a trained chef for a number of years, and now kind of have shifted into more of hosting people on at events and hosting people at on my tours in Italy, and discovering all kinds of really cool artisan culinary artisans around the world. I mean, I've gone and worked with chefs in Italy. I've even interviewed chefs in Morocco, and cooked with some of them. And I'm just passionate about the entire so much culinary history and so much cultural history around the world in so many places. So that's kind of what I've been up to lately.
Amazing. This is the perfect time because this month is about growth, transition, and it sounds like you did a lot of growth since we last spoke.
Oh yeah.
Well, not since we spoke, but the CW family is hearing from you because we've spoken quite often.
That's true.
But you're also growing into the podcast space.
hmm
How is that?
I really like the podcast space, and I'm looking forward to doing more with you guys, and talking about just all the different things that I've been experiencing out there. One of the things that I just love, it's kind of like one of my passions is preservation, right? So for me, it's not only culinary and artisanal preservation, but also architectural preservation, cultural presentation, heritage, that kind of stuff, because so much of that is getting lost today. Just a really simple example is, my girlfriend's house. She's got a beautiful home, and it's being sold to a developer, and he's going to probably tear it down and build some other structure. And it's a shame because that little piece of architectural history, not that it's a historic monument or anything like that, but just the way that here in Los Angeles, at least, and probably at many other parts of the world, where, if it's old, we just tear it down and put something else up. But it doesn't have that same beautiful architectural value, or the traditions aren't being carried forward, and that kind of thing. It's like there's a cheese dairy in Tuscany that I go visit regularly. They're friends of mine. And one of the sad things about him is he's hoping that maybe one of his kids will take over the dairy and continue the lineage that's been happening since the 60s when his parents originally had the land. So, these things are changing, and it's sad to see some of these things going away.
And that's very true. We actually talked about this on Monday
Mm-hmm.
with heritage and lineage. For one, we're so disconnected from the next generation
Yeah.
and past that things are not being passed down businesses, houses, traditions. Everybody wants to just start new.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
we're losing a lot of things. Recipes being one of those things that we're
Hmm.
losing because nobody is in the kitchen, passing that down.
Right. Right.
So, but
Yeah.
preservation is a key word around here at Cooking with Positivity. We talk about it all the time,
Yeah.
especially when
It's.
it comes to things like food.
Hmm. Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of funny because so many people are not cooking today, and it just kind of blows me away. Um, and how many people just, they're not cooking, or they just kind of go to the store, they open up a package that's either pre-prepared food, pre-cut, pre-this, pre-that, open up a can, put a couple of cans together and throw it in the microwave and it's done. And it's just kind of, to me, there's so much, and I know, we've talked about it in the past, because there's so much love and, um, so much nutritional value being lost. I mean, if you
Yeah,
just look at only that part of it, right, with either processed food or with just things that are for convenience, rather than really becoming involved with what it is that we eat on a daily basis. It's kind of like when you think about it, so many people are involved in going to the gym and really figuring out, okay, well, what is my next workout routine and how am I going to build this much muscle or whatever they're thinking about, right? Well, what if you put that same amount of time into what it is that you're going to be cooking and taking the time to stop in the middle of the day or in the evening, preparing something from scratch so that you know exactly what is going into that meal, all the ingredients, and so that you can actually create something that matches what it is that you're doing, say, for your workout on a daily basis, right? And
absolutely. We're not talking a chicken breast on a bed of lettuce. Okay,
right,
gotta get more
exactly.
creative than that.
That's right.
And it matches exactly what we're discussing with our Stretch the Pack series.
Hmm.
Because I often have ingredients and I have to figure out what to do with them
Hmm.
in order for us to survive until I'm able to, get more groceries because the price of
Right.
groceries are astronomical
Yep.
lately. So I stretched everything that I had without losing flavor, without losing, the palate of my kids. I have teenagers and they will tell you if they don't like something. So
Yeah.
I am very careful in what ingredients I use and also getting the value out of a pack of chicken.
Yeah. Yep.
I use a pack of chicken, I want to say the entire month.
Mm.
One pack of chicken breasts I've utilized the entire month, whether that be stews, soups, chicken, tacos, whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it gives you the creative juices as well. It's like,
Hmm.
what can I do? It's chicken again, but how can I, you know, jazz this up? Because again,
Yeah.
I have teenagers. Yeah, they don't really do the leftover stuff.
No.
If they do, it gotta look a little different. You gotta add something. You gotta take away something. You gotta make it look different.
Hmm.
Yes. So that, and that need to want to cook
Right.
has to be there because I know a few of my friends, they were like, I just threw the bird in the oven and let it cook. And I was like, What? That's blasphemy. How dare you? What do you mean? Yeah, because I mean, they were hungry. I didn't feel like cooking, so I just threw the bird in the oven. Broke my heart.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, what could have made that moment different? Could you have taken the kids in the kitchen with you and let them help season the bird, maybe? Can you have learned to break it down? Maybe show them a different way to make the bird? I don't know. Instead of just throwing it in the oven, I just got transferred back to that moment. Y'all excuse me because
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that we lose and that we forget. It's kind of like, parents, and, I'm a parent of two, grown daughters, and it's, and these are not only, the cool thing about cooking and food is that these are not only teachable moments, but they're also family moments. It's
yes,
kind of like bringing your kids into the kitchen with you and say, okay, here, cut this. Here, this is how we season this, showing them how to do things. So that way, we're doing a service to them. Why? Because they're going to go out in the world someday and they're going to have to figure out how to fend for themselves. And if we have taught them how to cook and taught them some of these basic techniques out there, then we know that they're going to be able to create a healthy meal for themselves if that's what they choose to do, right?
yes.
But
And it won't just be
it's
throwing
our
the bird
job,
in the oven. Ah,
right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially if you got little kids, it's like, okay, come on, kids, and it gives you an opportunity to be with your kids and then or create family time in the kitchen and be with the whole family and say, okay, Dad, here you cut this stuff up, and here, kid one, you do this, and kid two, you do this, and I'll take care of this stuff, and we're going to make, either you have a recipe and you're following the recipe, and this is what we're going to make for dinner, or you're just kind of winging it and going, okay, well, we're going to put this in and this, and then you can joke around and have a good time and make it an event and make it fun family time to be in the kitchen. And then it transfers down the road to, wow, cooking is fun. It's enjoyable.
it sure is. And I've been teaching my kids ever since they were old enough to hold a knife.
There you go.
And now with my limited mobility, they are my sous chefs.
Perfect.
Sometimes they get ahead of themselves. They think they're the chefs. I got to
Hmm.
kind of remind them, hey, okay, bring it back. Still my kitchen. But for the most part, they are able to create a meal
Right.
for not only themselves, but others.
Hmm.
And it's edible. I don't have to edit too much. I don't have to grill them in too much.
Right.
Except for, my oldest, a little heavy handed with the salt.
Hmm.
My youngest is very experimental, so we have to find a happy medium for all of those things. But that's easy. That's edible. Like you can do that. We can
Right.
work on that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
when we pass things down to our kids, we are not only preserving the recipe or created recipe, but we're preserving those family moments.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Because I think back to how many times, growing up, I seen my mom in the kitchen and I was fascinated. I wanted to know what the heck she was doing.
Hmm.
And I ended up sitting in the kitchen telling her about my day, asking her, oh, what's that? Oh, I don't eat that. And she's telling me, you will eat it. And then sending me out the kitchen. But I remember those moments very fondly. So
Yeah.
preservation is, again, the key word here.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I remember the moments, my mom cooking in the kitchen and, she made dinner pretty much every night. And, I remember, watching her cook and sometimes helping her cook. I remember both of my grandparents, my grandmas coming over. One of them lived with us. The other one would come and visit for, long periods of time. And watching them cook and seeing what they made and how they made it was always just, wow, this is incredible.
Yes.
And even though I don't necessarily remember those recipes or anything like that, although my uncle did give me a couple of my grandmother's recipes, but,
Oh.
you know, those memories and having that, that joy of food. I mean, when I go, when I'm in Italy and I'm with some of the families there in Italy that I know, it's like that is the table and the quality of the ingredients and the quality of what they make. It's not about how expensive it is.
Right.
It's just about, we care so much about our food supply that we don't mess it up, and we buy the freshest things that we can buy that are most likely locally grown close by wherever they live. And, of course, we have a different system here in this country, unless you're living in a very rural area. But if you're living in the city like I do, I don't have farms that I can go to and that kind of thing.
Right.
But, we do the best we can with what we have where we're at, wherever it is.
That's for sure. I am very much on the precipice of doing the best I can. I have been trying to grow a garden.
Oh,
in
nice.
the apartment bay window area.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been working. So I have been, relying on my garden green thumb brothers and sisters on YouTube.
Oh, perfect.
Following a lot of them, trying to get, tricks and tips.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do have limited space. I have a small little garden bed under the window of my apartment. So it's not like, I can go out there and start digging and planting like I
Right.
planned. So I have to figure some stuff out. And I think I have a plan. Now it's just about executing it because I want the freshest ingredients. I want to know, where my food is coming from, what I'm putting in my food, what I'm giving to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to carry that on because it's very easy, like you said, to go grab a can of something and put it on the stove and call it dinner.
Right. Yep.
A lot of times that's what most families have enough for or enough time for. But if we can substitute at least one can for something fresh,
Mm-hmm.
one ingredient for something fresh, I think we're doing a good job and we're working in the right direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, even if you're taking stuff out of cans, right, or out of packages or whatever it is, you can always start there and kind of realize, okay, well, if I'm taking this out of a can, then most likely, for instance, it's filled with a lot of salt,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's already a sign that, all right, well, let me see if I take can A and I put it with can B and I end up putting that with can C, or I, mix those two cans together and then maybe add a little bit of spices and, pour it over rice or some pasta or whatever. At least that's a beginning, right? There's always a way to start. And I think when you really think about it, sometimes we overthink things because the amount of time it takes to make a fresh meal versus opening up a couple of cans, throwing it into a pot or a pan or, or a bowl and putting it in the microwave, whatever that is, doesn't take that much more time in reality to cut up a couple of fresh vegetables, even if they're not perfect cuts or whatever, and throw them into a saute pan and saute them with a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper, and call it a day. Throw a little cheese on there, or throw some pre-cooked chicken in there or whatever. Boom, you got a meal. And it took you 15 minutes to make at the most, and it's fresh, and the amount of salt you actually put into that is a fraction of what was in that can that you opened up, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's those, there's those options as well. And, even if you did that once or twice a week and just to start, both of my kids, they're really good cooks. It's kind of funny because my younger one, just like your younger one, she likes to experiment with all kinds of different spices and that kind of thing. So she comes up with all kinds of interesting flavors and stuff, and it's really good. And they're both really good cooks. They have different techniques, they have different ways of doing it, but they both, know how to cook. It would be great. It's wonderful when they cook for me every once in a while. I love it. So.
Well, technically, my daughters cook for me every day because, like I said, they're my sous chefs. So I'm
Right.
normally delegating, like, okay, cut this up, go put this on the stove at this temperature. My oldest she loves high heat. She
Mm-hmm.
gets that from her father. That's not a new thing. I've learned over the years between the high heat and salt, I'm going to have to make sure I stand beside her on those things. But other than that, she follows directions very well.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great when we wrote our cookbook together
Uh-huh.
because there were recipes that we were, testing out to make sure we had the measurements right.
Mm-hmm.
When they originally created them, it was just like, this is something I want to put together. This is what I put in it. And I was like, okay, great. You realize you just created a recipe. Do you remember what you put in it? And nobody's memory was actually good, but she was able to follow the directions that I gave her prior. Like, I think we have her birthday cupcakes
Mm-hmm.
in the book. And she asked me while she was making it, because she didn't want me to do anything, because she didn't want me to take credit. Although I wouldn't do that, but according to her, she wanted to say she made them herself. So she asked me, how many strawberries do I have to cut up for my frosting and things like that? And so I
Mm-hmm.
gave her the directions, but I was told to stay upstairs, far away from her creative process. And by directing her from my bedroom, her cupcakes came out great, if I do say so myself.
Awesome.
And me being able to, give her directions has helped a lot here in the future. Because again, I have a limited mobility now.
Mm-hmm.
So standing and moving around in the kitchen, not like I used to. Not like I
Sure.
used to be able to. So being able to tell her, okay, put on a pot of water, make sure you season the water. Don't over season the water, because she's heavy handed with the salt.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
Mm-hmm.
put seasoning in other areas. but make sure you season the water because we don't want, bland pasta.
Right. Sure.
She's able to take those directions. And most of the time now, she's like 3 steps ahead of me where I could tell her, okay, we're having this and this for dinner. And she'll remember like the directions I gave her previously when we cooked this meal. And so I don't have to do so much directing as much anymore. So it's a blessing. And it's a good thing, like we said, to have your kids in the kitchen. Because you
Yeah.
never know what the heck is going to happen. And you want them to be able to feed themselves. You don't know how many guys I've come across. I'll say guys because I've dated guys. I don't know
Right.
about the women side enough. I know a little bit because my guy friends complain, but they're not cooking. Nobody's cooking anymore. It's all fast
Right.
food and all prepackaged things, like you said. So when you come across someone who not only can cook for themselves, but they can cook for others, that is an amazing skill to have, and it's very rare nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. It's becoming less and less. I mean, your kids are, that's such a blessing of you know, you're really teaching them such a great skill. Um, and the fact, you know, you've got these sous chefs there and you're teaching them how to cut, you're teaching them how to season, and you're teaching them. I mean, it's like they're going to culinary school every day with you, and you're teaching them, you know, which is freaking awesome.
And that was my goal
Hmm.
because like I said, I've come across quite a few people my age and younger who could not feed themselves.
Yeah.
They could not make anything but noodles.
Hmm.
And if they were eating noodles every day, I'm quite sure they weren't eating any vegetables. So you
Right.
can imagine what their insides look like.
Hmm.
My God, I dread to think. So, so I knew I didn't want my kids to, one, be out here in the world and not be able to take care of themselves. And two, not understand the nutritional value of a well-rounded meal.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because when people think about food, often the first thought is survival. I get it. Understand. But survival also has to incorporate nutritional value.
Right. Yeah.
Because you could very well eat noodles every day,
Absolutely.
but your days won't be a lot longer. And I'm saying this from experience. I had a friend who all he ate was noodles.
Mm.
Chicken flavor, beef flavor. He even liked the swasha flavor. I don't know what flavor that is, but
I don't know what that is.
it's a green packet of noodles. I don't know. If you know, hit us up, let us know. But
Yeah.
he loved them. And I said, oh, do you put like, greens or, egg or anything in it? And he was like, no, it's noodles. And I was like, it's also ramen noodles. You can jazz it up. He said,
Ah,
no, I have all the flavor I need in the packet. And I cringed because I was like, I would hate to be around when you go to the bathroom because I know that smell is atrocious. And he ended up, going to the hospital and they're telling him like, you need to change your diet. You need to eat more vegetables. You need to eat more fruits. And I said, you need to eat more food because
yeah.
a ramen diet no, excuse me, a noodle diet, because that's what he's essentially eating, is not a
Mhm.
diet
No,
for any human being.
not at all.
So nutritional value is key, people. Okay? Please don't be out here just eating noodles.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing when you talk about nutritional value, it's kind of like when we think about pasta, it's kind of like in Italy, and the reason why I talk about Italy a lot is because I've been focusing in that country quite a bit, and I've traveled all over Italy. Um, and people eat pasta every single day, right? And yet, you don't see a lot of overweight people in Italy. And when I'm in Italy and traveling in Italy, I eat pasta almost every single day. The interesting thing, though, is when I eat pasta in Italy versus if I eat pasta here, when I eat pasta in Italy, my stomach's not bloated. I don't feel overwhelmed with, where there's this just like there's a stone sitting in my stomach, right? Because in Italy, they don't take all the nutrients out of the semolina flour, right?
Right.
They don't bleach the flour. They don't make it to the lowest common denominator so that it's the cheapest thing out there, right? So when you buy a packet of spaghetti here for 99 cents or $1.29 or whatever it is for a pound of spaghetti, right? Then you're basically getting water and bleached flour, which has no nutritional value, period, end of conversation, right? When you buy a packet of pasta that comes from, durum wheat semolina pasta that may cost several dollars. Here in the States, it might cost $3 or $4 or $5 or $8 or sometimes $10 for a packet of pasta, right? And that's maybe not even a pound, right? But the nutritional value is so much higher, and you don't need to eat nearly as much of it, right? I mean, I import this pasta from Italy, and the quality of the pasta, it's an egg pasta. It's made with, locally grown semolina flour and eggs, and maybe they put a tiny bit of salt in the pasta. I don't know, but the flour is pretty much just ground up semolina. That's it. They didn't bleach it. They didn't put it through any other processing. They ground it up to a very, very, very fine grade, and they mix it with eggs, maybe a little bit of water. I can't remember. And they make this beautiful, amazing pasta out of it that cooks from its dry state in maybe anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. It's done perfect al dente, right? And I can eat a little bit of that and feel completely satisfied, and then have, of course, I'm not eating just pasta with a package of flavor seasoning, right? You know, I'm adding maybe a little bit of chicken or beef or prosciutto or guanciale or whatever it might be to it, and some vegetables, and maybe some fresh tomatoes or whatever, and then a little bit of good olive oil, and you got a meal there, and then maybe a little Parmigiano cheese or whatever, freshly grated, and that's either a meal, or if you're young, and especially a teenager in your early 20s, when you can eat it never stops eating, then then you have that, then you have that first, and then you go and eat yourself a big steak or whatever, right? But it's a good, that's just one tiny little example of creating something, or the difference between something that's highly processed versus something that's not as processed may cost a little bit more. But these are things that we have to look at. We have to be conscious of labels. We have to be conscious of the way we shop in the store. One of the things I learned in culinary school that I was already pretty much practicing anyways was I don't go up and down the aisles at the store. I go around the perimeter. because around the perimeter is where all the fresh ingredients are, right? You've got
Right.
your vegetables, and you got your whole produce section, and then you kind of go around, and then you got your cheeses and your yogurts or whatever, and that kind of stuff, and then you kind of end up in the meats and the fish and all that. That's pretty much what you need, right? Down up and down the aisles, all the processed stuff. And so, yeah, if you got to do some baking, you do that. If you got to, you got to get some spices, you go up down the spice aisle, that kind of thing. But in terms of actual food product to consume, that was that's kind of how I've shopped most of my life. And one of the things they taught us in culinary school, and you know what? It works out really well.
I'm going to put that to practice the next time I go grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Shop around the aisles, on the
Yeah.
perimeter, not the inside the aisles.
Exactly.
Definitely gonna utilize that because
Yeah.
there's stuff in here I don't even know why it's here. Normally because my kids wanted it, they saw it, they wanted to try it or something
Of
like that.
course. Yep.
And I didn't even think to, because I shop online, I didn't even think to click. I went to the meat section,
Mm-hmm.
the fruits and vegetable section, and then the eggs and dairy section.
Right. Yep.
Those are my main sections when I start grocery shopping.
Yeah.
All the other stuff ends up in my cart because my kids send them to me. Oh, did you get this? Oh, did you get that? Oh, I saw this. Can we try this? Can we do that? And I'm like, okay, I guess. And then I
Yep.
end up with colorful things and funny looking things and boxes in my house that I don't know, where it actually came from.
Right.
But now I know because my kids shop in the house and I shop in the perimeter. So
That's right.
we're going to have to all get on the perimeter.
Yeah.
Now, Chef
Yeah.
Rico, we could talk about food all day long,
That's right.
but we don't have all day. So can you tell the family where you have grown, what you have going on? Don't tell them everything because, like you said, you're going to be a fixture here at Cooking with Positivity. Moving forward, they're going to hear your name quite a bit, but let
Uh-oh.
them know what you have going on right now.
Well, let's see. What do I got going on right now? Well, a few things. I created an Italy travel guide that you can download off of my website, which we were at a trade show last month, and a lot of people, and we had a couple of printed copies of it out, and people really liked it. And that, and in that travel guide, it's not your typical travel guide. A lot, some of it tells some of my story of some of my adventures in Italy. And then it has some information about a couple of our signature tours that we do, which are culinary tours. They're focused on, because I'm into preservation and I'm also into slow travel. So for me, traveling is about experiencing a place. So as I like to say, you can either go on a tour and watch the movie, which is, going from one place to the next, to the next, to the next. And so by the time you're done with your tour, then you need a vacation from the tour because you're so exhausted.
Yeah.
You're gone to too many places. Or you can essentially be a part of the movie, which is what I like to say, which for us is we go to, like in my Tuscany Umbria tour, we go to 2 locations and that's our home base. And then we don't do anything more than one thing per day. And so that way people have the opportunity to enjoy where they're staying. They have the opportunity to immerse themselves wherever we're at. And when we're interacting with people, and some of the people on my tours, they go, Rico, we're just visiting your friends. And it's like, yeah, Hello? Of course you're visiting my friends. But look at how cool these people are. And don't you want them to be your friends too? And they're all, yeah, that would be great. And so, so the people on the tours, they will, by the end of the tour, they're kind of like, yeah, I got this person's email and we exchange, we're friends on Facebook now or friends on Instagram or whatever. And everybody's having a great time. Right. And so when you're done with the tour, you feel like you've been a part of Italy. You've seen things that most tourists will not see, right? Most people who go visit Italy are going to all the big crowded touristy places, right? Which at some point in your life, absolutely go there. Visit Rome, visit Venice, visit Florence, Siena, all these different places, right? I don't take anybody to any of those places. Why? Because there's a lot of people who are already doing that. I take people outside of the big city. I want them to experience the interior of Italy, the preservation of Italy, the traditions the culinary traditions, one of the things we go in Umbria, we visit Montefalco, and there's a wonderful chef, and she owns her restaurant, and we dine at her restaurant. Then we go to her house later on and do a cooking class with her and experience this intimate gathering at her home, and which is just such a beautiful, wonderful experience. And even though she doesn't really speak any English, and we do have translators, right? You still pick up that whole feeling, and there's this communication that happens between the people who I take you to and the experiences that we have, that even if they don't speak English or virtually no English, there's still that connection being made just through the food, just through the way that they look at you and the way they speak to you, and the generosity and the real true embracing of everyone who's there, as we're people, we're having a good time, we're sharing our culture, we're sharing our traditions, we're sharing our lives with you, and we're breaking bread together, and that's kind of the important thing. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, one of the big things I've been up to, which has been, really, really cool. And so that's been great. I'm also in the middle of writing a memoir. A lot of it having to do with a lot of it ends up having to do with my travels to Italy and the transformation that's occurred in my life since my second divorce. And a lot of the things that I've learned and the experiences that I've had and that kind of stuff. So, I won't give everything away, but that's kind of what I've been up to lately.
That's a lot. Listen, like you have a lot going on, and we love it. Now, you have easily moved into a second category of the CWP Awards because now you're a fellow podcaster. Tell everyone where they can get your podcast, listen to your podcast, tune in, tap in, engage.
Well, I don't have necessarily, to tell you the truth, I don't have my own podcast, although I do, I do some video, I do video interviews on occasion, and they can go see some of those video interviews on my website, at misenplace.com. That's mizenplace.com. And then, we'll be doing some more of these podcasts here, so they'll be able to hear more of me here with you.
Awesome. Now, I want to thank you again for coming back and letting everyone know what you have going on. Like you said, it's a lot. So we will be looking forward to everything that we have going on in the future here at Cooking with Positivity and what you have going on as far as your tours, the book, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So thank
Absolutely.
you. And you already know if you're a part of the CWP family, can't get rid of us, even if you tried. And on that note, we are out.